Good afternoon, grinders. It's Team Killer B here to recap our DraftKings cash lineup from Sunday. Merry Christmas. Hope all is well. Before we get going, I wanted to hit on one thing. I get confused about who's on what screen. I know that below our pictures are some comments. Please let us know if you prefer this over the written recaps we had been doing. We thought we'd give you something a little different, but if you're sick of seeing this face and those faces, we can go back. Our biggest slate for the week was our DK Sunday cash lineup, as it typically is. You can see it on the screen there. Matt Ryan, our three running backs. We rolled a running back in the flex for Trey Mason, my favorite Joik in the entire world, Joik Bell, and C.J. Anderson. You'll see Amendola. You will see Steve Smith. You will see Jordy Nelson, Gronk, and the Lions. Let's get into it. Kurt, we had a quarterback on the other side of the line scrimmage for a while, but ended up with Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So we definitely were playing between two quarterbacks here. We're Matt Ryan and Drew Brees. Felt like the Drew Brees play was probably the cash play, and Matt Ryan would be the GPP play when we're rolling out our two slates. Luckily, when we started playing around with our running backs, wide receivers, other positions, we had to go down to Matt Ryan in order to make our lineup work. And thankfully we did, because Drew Brees laid another egg. A couple weeks ago he did that to us with Jimmy Graham. This week he did it again. We got burnt over on another site, but luckily we went down to Matt Ryan. Great matchup. We were a little concerned about the Julio news and that injury. And it looked like Julio was maybe not 100%, but he definitely put up another nice line. So definitely helped out that we saw the wide receiver news and rolled with Matt Ryan, which definitely paid off.
Brett, C.J. Anderson was one we thought about.
Yeah.
He was your guy,
So,
and it was a good play. Talk about it.
Yeah, so basically, we were on Drew Brees, which I like Drew Brees the most, I think, per dollar, but it really affected our lineup. Now, later on in the year here, especially in cash game situations, I like to do running backs. I feel like I can predict running back production pretty a lot easier than wide receivers. I mean, wide receivers, there's a lot of variance in it. So really circled C.J. Anderson on DraftKings here. And he came through with 8 receptions, which is nice. Gives you 4 more points, or I should say, is it 4 more points? Yeah, it gives us 4 more points than on FanDuel. So that worked out. What was this? 138 total yards, a rushing touchdown. He almost broke that one at the end of the game to get 2, but really happy that we went down from Brees to Ryan to fit in C.J. Anderson. The matchup was good. If you're going to beat Cincinnati, you're going to beat them on the ground. So. Yeah, really like that. I'll send it back to you, Louis. Why don't you talk about our other 2 running backs here, our value plays?
Yep. Well, there was 4 guys that we considered, and we ended up with 2 of them. We had Fred Jackson, we had Lamar Miller, and we ended up with Joik Bell and Trey Mason. We were on Trey Mason early in the week, and we're almost scared off him by the fact that his player prop was like plus 160 to score a touchdown, and I was glad we ended up sticking with him. Joik Bell was kind of not on our radar for his price, but his player prop, what was he, minus 140 for a touchdown, 95 total yards, ended up going with him. It turned out okay. Lamar Miller was somebody that I think maybe we weren't considering as much, and then his player prop was pretty decent, and so we ended up with a little bit of him. That was. I think there was a lot of shifting that we did Sunday morning going between all of those guys.
Yeah, and if we can do confession corner, I was the one that was heavily trying to fade Lamar Miller. I just didn't feel like the number of touches were there when we were talking about the Trey Masons and some of the other value. And so I definitely was not huge on him, and we've been discussing him for the past couple of weeks. And my biggest concern is 15 touches a game. He taps out at 15 to 20 touches, and this week he paid off big time. And so confession over here. My bad.
You're not the only one. I left him out of grout for that reason. The touches.
And I will also say, in the back of my mind, I knew I was going to buy Lamar Miller after I saw the Vegas odds. It just seemed like it worked out better on FanDuel with Lamar Miller. We had to save $200, and it felt like the right area to save $200 was at the running back spot, going from Trey Mason to Lamar Miller there. But Getting back to this lineup, Joik Bell was an interesting play. Like Luke and Kurt said, we weren't really on Joik, but then after the news of Cutler not playing, Vegas swung their line really quick, which made game flow unbelievable for Detroit and Joik Bell. It just was very surprising when you saw the first 6 touches go to all Reggie Bush. Yeah. I started questioning that pick right away. I'm like, what? Did I not see something? Did he get hurt in the warm-ups? What's going on with Joik? But luckily he came back in the fourth quarter and really put almost like 80% of his points in the fourth quarter. So
I thought the same thing. I was looking at Twitter to see if he got in late the night before and they suspended him for the first half or something because you normally saw Joik handle the bulk of the carries initially, and then maybe a little bit of Reggie, but not how
it's never good when Reggie Bush gets the start and the full touches on the opening drive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was worried he went the way of Marshawn Lynch and had a stomach ailment for the first quarter. Yeah. Look at he got healthy right about the time the second quarter started.
Yeah, exactly.
Kurt, you want to talk a little bit? We'll start with Steve Smith, because we had Torrey Smith in our Thursday FanDuel. I wrote about Torrey Smith. We made the switch kind of early Sunday from Torrey to Steve.
I feel like this is Kurt's confessional corner right now because this is another play that we reviewed the player props again Sunday morning, and maybe this is a sign that we need to stop going at the player props a little more than we have been. But Steve Smith had straight up better props than Torrey Smith. It was only like a reception and like maybe 10 yards, but there was a little bit of more touchdown equity there, I believe, as well. But basically, it was a coin flip, and so I was bigger on Steve Smith than Torrey Smith. Well, obviously that we lost that end of the coin flip because Torrey Smith he caught the 2 touchdowns. But man, how bad is that pass offense? Against one of the best matchups that you can possibly have. And Flacco, I think Brett texted us, look at Flacco's line. He just had his 4th completion, and we're sitting at like the start of the 4th quarter. I mean, who would have seen that? So that hurt a little bit.
The FCC received 10 complaints over Tom Brady swearing and them airing it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the people of Baltimore are submitting complaints to the FCC about what they put on the air for 4 quarters.
Okay, and Kurt, just to also dive into that Steve Smith play, it really wasn't Steve Smith versus Torrey Smith for me. It was definitely Steve Smith Sr. versus Moncrief for Indy.
Yeah, we had that too.
They were both at the 4,100 price point. I can honestly say I was on Moncrief here. And both you and Luke were on Steve Smith Sr. So that gave us like a boost of probably another 7 points because Moncrief really didn't do much. So
why don't we hand it over to you to float your boat on Danny Amendola, because I know that Luke and I were kicking and screaming, and I think we still are. But good call, man. Good call.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously I don't think it's an unbelievable call here. It's just a 3K min value. You have New England's best pass catcher, and he runs a lot of middle routes out of the lineup. So I mean, insert Danny Amendola, right? That was my thinking here. Saves us money to spend at the running back and the Gronkowski pick. And again, this is a cash game. The one way you beat the Jets is through the air. You don't beat them through the ground game. So really, my value New England plays were going to be Vereen or Amendola. Here, it was a clear cut. Amendola was min value, so let's go with Amendola here. And then we paired him up with the Gronk. Gronk, I mean, we were expecting more from him here, but luckily the touchdown kind of saved his price here.
There's nothing much to say about Gronk, right? He's the best tight end in the worst matchup with less receiving people to take him away, and there was 12 wide receivers priced higher than him. Yeah. Like, it's very infrequently that we get complete consensus, but we hardly talked about it at all. It just started.
If I tell you that Gronk had 6 receptions, what's your over/under on yardage?
Oh, I mean, he had 4 for 100 last week, so he goes 6 for at least 100, right?
Yeah, right. 31? No. And he had that 1 yard, 2 yard touchdown, whatever it was, and you're thinking that was early in the game. We're sitting good. Got Amendola there paired up with him, and man, that did not that game flow completely
I
went
will
different
say,
than we
I will
thought.
say this though, AFC East, especially when New England goes on the road, whether they go to Miami, whether they go to the Jets, whether they go to Buffalo Bills, those games are always close games, no matter their records. No matter their records, like they go to New York, they're going to struggle. It doesn't matter if the Jets have 2 wins on the year like they do now; they're going to struggle on the road. It seems like that every year. They always struggle in Miami. They always struggle in Buffalo. It's always the same way.
And not only that, I think the Jets took a pretty good run at them on the road on a Thursday night game too earlier this year. Just
sure.
Jets have played them well.
All right, and then Luke, why don't you wrap up the wide receivers here and talk a little bit about Jordy? I know I'll say this: nobody felt worse about dropping that touchdown 2 weeks ago than Jordy Nelson. Like it was just a weird feeling, and I believe I said he was my favorite wide receiver on the board.
Yep, and we ended up we talked about Calvin and him were the two guys, but $1,000 less. It was an easy pick. I said this. I don't believe in narratives, but if I did believe in narratives, there's no stronger narrative than Rodgers knowing his wide receiver feels bad and wanting to get him a touchdown to make up. I don't believe in it, but if I did, I would believe in that. So that was great. Defense-wise, just to get anyone that cares, we were on the Patriots in Miami and ended up going up to the Lions when we went with Matt Ryan. They all pretty much produced the same. So, well, Grinders, Merry Christmas. I'll just leave that quote to the side. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. Good luck this week.